Day 27. Yesterday I left off with the canopy glued on, and today we're going to put in the superfill. I should have done it last night. I just got tired. I've been working on this a lot. I got tired and went to sleep. Still really nose heavy. Which is a good thing, I suppose. Anyway, we're going to tape off a line, and you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch transition. This canopy came out easier than the Monado did because I dug it in. So we're not going to use as much putty. So I'm figuring about 1/4 of an inch to transition between the two, the fuselage and the canopy. So I tape off about, well, it's a little more than a 1/4 inch, about 3/16 on each side. 3/16 up on the canopy and 3/16 down on the fuselage. We got about 3/8 showing, I guess. Now, Eric Bigloni showed a syringe, and I need to buy one of those syringes because I think it probably would make life easier. But I've done it this way ever since the epoxylite days, and I don't know, old habits are hard to break, I guess. I wanted to get this set up. I'm working on some customer projects, but I wanted to get this set up to start drying while we're working on other stuff. I'm using 1/2 inch blue fine line tape, very pricey stuff, but good stuff. So we'll mix up enough superfill to go around that. Next thing I do, not mandatory, but it's a good idea. I have my oval piece of brass sanding stick, and it's got 80 grit sandpaper on it. And we're just going to scuff this up, both sides. Is it necessary? I don't know. We know we're going to get that canopy stuck on there, I'll guarantee you that. And you don't have to, you're not building watches, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. there's another thing. See, not only does it roughen this up, it brings those two lines closer together, so it'll be less filler. The reason why I like the oval brass is it's got ½ inch on one side and 1/8 inch on the other. You can kind of get down in those cracks. So that looks pretty good. Feels good too. Level them right out. So let's get some superfill mixed up. Remember what I told you about superfill? Don't cross-contaminate them. I thought I had one last 2-ounce cup, but it doesn't look like. Oh, there it is. We're going to mix this up kind of hot because I don't want to wait all day for it to dry. We don't need much because we don't have a big gap to fill. I think by the smell of this hardener for superfill, it's ammonia. Because it smells like the dog peed or the cat peed. So we got a little 2-ounce cup. Mix this up real good. We're back to time management now, where I'm letting this stuff dry while I'm doing something else. Go in the bathroom, steal the alcohol because I'm out of 91 proof, but there is some 70 proof in there. Okay. Very hard to manipulate without using my fingers. Well, I just cutting that canopy in, sanding that off, made the molding of this end just super nice. There's hardly any putty on it. One side. I really hate this because you think, well, I'm getting close, and then you got to go through and do something like this, and it'll be all day getting this feathered in. As I showed on my Monado, it's not just put it on and forget it. It's sanding and filling and priming and because these focal points such as canopy attachment, fillet areas where the flaps meet, and the stab, anybody that's a builder is looking at that. And those are areas you want to focus on. Now, with any luck, we won't be able to see any of that blue in the canopy. And I can't. That's good. So, that's relatively smooth. I'll let it set a few minutes. Take the tape up. We'll come back in a half an hour. I'll use the alcohol and smooth it out. So we'll see you then. Okay, it's been 45 minutes and the superfill has firmed up and I'm floating it with the alcohol. Now on this, I don't want to do a lot of sanding, so I'm going to take some extra time getting this blended in. I mean, I'm going to have to sand. There's just, you know, there's no way around not sanding. However, if you take your time and smooth this stuff out, we can keep the sanding down to a minimum. And it's basically like when you were a kid playing with putty, Play-Doh, whatever. Nope, we don't want to get any up on the canopy. Looks like there might be an issue right there. No. We lucked out. The alcohol really helps it smooth out too, so don't be afraid to, you know, liberally put the alcohol on your finger, because the more alcohol, it kind of floats it like if you were doing concrete. We're coming up on the 300-hour mark on this airplane. I know there's 300 hours in it so far. That seems impossible, but to build a good airplane, it takes between 300 and 400 hours. And the building part is the easy part. The finish is what takes the most time. At least for me it does. You know, if you don't have to have a super finished model, I'm sure you could do it a lot faster. And alcohol really, it even takes paint up. But that's alright. I think we'll stop there. Just call it good while I'm ahead. So it's a matter of letting this, you know, fully cure up. It'll be, I'm sure it'll be a couple hours, and we'll do some other stuff. So we'll see you when we come back, and I'm going to sand that off and start blending it in. I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint it white. We're going to paint up on the canopy white a little bit, so that we got a little more area to work with. Oh yeah. Another nice install. So, we'll see you in a bit. Well, as we're waiting for the canopy to dry, I'm sanding out the bottom. More sanding. I can't express to you how much sanding is actually involved. I decided I'd turn on the camera. Been sanding on this for an hour, waiting on the putty to dry. And you gotta keep moving. If you just wait for something else to dry, you'll never get done. So what I do is on the time management is like the tail wheel. It hasn't been soldered on yet. When there's nothing else to do, there's always something to do. When something is drying, I'll solder the tail wheel on. And while this is drying, I'm sanding out the bottom, because the bottom has to look as good as the top. I know, I didn't used to think that way. But if you're going to cheat it, only cheat it by one coat. Don't cheat it by not finishing the bottom equally as well. I also paint the exact same panel lines and the exact same paint job on the bottom. Or if you're going to have a different bottom like this one, it's going to have checkerboards, a different pattern, but it will be of equal quality. If you don't, you won't get maximum points. And I sure wish they'd bring back the 40 appearance points. Because it ought to be, all this work ought to be worth one maneuver. I don't understand for the life of me why the spread is only 20. The only thing I can think of is some of the people don't build or finish as well, and the ones that don't whined that they were getting beat out by appearance points. Well, that's pretty simple. Learn to build better. Learn to finish better. Don't dumb down the sport. Just like my flying. Every year I go to the Nats, I'm just a little bit off. I'm going to try this year. If I decide that I'm going to go, I'm going to fly more and build less and try to make the cut. Depending on weather. Because our weather here in Missouri is absolutely terrible. And if it ain't the weather where the park is flooded underwater and we can't fly. So there's a lot of factors that go in. I don't have an auxiliary place. I guess there's a spot across the river, but I haven't been over there in 8 or 10 years. I'm going to be, I need another couple cans of DC 540. I'm out of it. But I'm not going to go get it today. It's kind of nasty out, raining. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going out and getting that, I know I have to go to the post office tomorrow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my wheel pants Z-epoxied and rough sanded to finish, because we got to do them yet. So as I stated, there's always something going on as far as finish goes. What I'm doing here is I'm sanding the excess primer off. Now you wouldn't think, well, you know, how much can you possibly get off? Well, all this dust, I don't know how much it weighs, but it has to weigh something. if I sand it all down to where it's just translucent, you can see through it without breaking through, we know we got the least amount of paint on we can have, and that's a good thing. I've got the elevator stabilizer pretty much sand down to nothing. Just keep sanding away. I will say this to any of the new people watching Control Line Craftsman. If you're not willing to put in the time on, and you don't have to do it all at once, but if you're not willing to put in the time on any particular model, you're not going to have 100% excellence. And I have yet to have 100% excellence. I'm up around the 95 to 97% range, but 100%, even I get tired. Sanding. I've looked at some airplanes, and when it's somebody else's, when you look at somebody else's airplane, you can't see any mistakes. I'll guarantee they know where they are. When you look at my airplane, I've had people say, well, there's no mistakes on this. Yeah, well, guess what? Yeah, there is. Keep you sanding. Unbelievable, all this sanding. I get a new piece of sandpaper and that'll cut a little better. Using 320, when I get done with 320, I'll come back with 600 or 400. I have both. And I'll probably come back with 400. And then with 600. But if you notice, the guide coat there came right down till it's gray. And that's a good thing. You want the least amount of paint on it you can get away with. Still have a nice looking airplane. Kind of like chroming. Chroming is 50 millionths thick. The metal is polished. You go to a chrome shop and you watch them chrome, all that polish shining, the metal is shiny before it's put in the tank. The electrical process that moves the chrome across the diodes is just a sealer. It's not there. It's not a coating. That's why you don't see any drips on any edge. You know, you think, well, God, it's got to drip somewhere when they take it out of the tank. Well, that's not how it works. Chroming is an electrical process, and it's only 50 millionths thick, and that metal looks that way before it goes in the tank. Well, that's what you got to do with an airplane. Your airplane has to look like you want the finish to look before you put the top coat on. Otherwise, you're decoupaging. And my one friend can see that. My one friend says, well, look at all the waves in that. Yeah, well. There is not much of a secret to finish except for right here, sanding. You better be willing to sand. Put it on and sand it off. You have to have a fair eye for shape, but you know, you certainly don't want to paint a turd. Polish your turd long enough, you'll still have a turd. Only it'll be a shiny turd. You know, that's basically what you got here. If you sand on a turd long enough, you'll have a smooth turd. So you don't want to start with a turd. I should have a block doing this. I'm just knocking the paint off. I think I'll label this video sanding. And for those who want to watch it, you can watch it, and listen to me. Other than sanding, there won't be anything else going on in this half hour or so. I'll keep talking and sanding for a half an hour, I guess. One of the reasons why I did these videos, because Wendy did videos and I appreciate it, and I've watched them all that have been uploaded, but they're rather boring. I know you don't want to watch, you know, family stuff, and I don't know, maybe some people would know Wendy like that, but I want to see what he's doing, and that's basically what why Control Line Craftsman was started. So we could show you what I'm doing. And sanding, however boring, is a huge part of model airplane building. Because you can bet, once I get this sanded, and I get another coat of paint on it, I'll do it again. And you'll think, God, that's ridiculous. Well, you talk to Phil Granderson, you talk to Wendy, you talk to anybody who does a super nice paint job, and they will tell you it's all about the sanding. Putting the paint on is a very, very small part of painting. The finish, as my byline said, starts with the first piece of wood cut, and the reason why it starts with the first piece of wood cut is you make all your joints tight, all your pieces of wood fit perfect, there's less sanding. Of course, if you don't mind sanding, you could build it with a hammer and then sand it to shape, but as I stated, there's already enough sanding on an airplane. I bet we've taken a few grams off already. And you think, well, that's not worth it. Well, considering we're going to put them back on with when I paint it, yeah, it is. Or we could just let it pile up. And all those grams continue to add up. If I wasn't worried about weight, you could just sand this close with 320, shoot on some automotive paint, and I know there's guys out there that do this because I see their airplanes. Shoot on the base color, and spray urethane over the top, and sand the top coat, and then polish it out. Looks beautiful. That's not what we're after. I'm after the classic hand-rubbed finish, just like a Steinway or a piano, hand-rubbed lacquer piano. There's a different look to it. Oh boy, keep sanding. We're rounding the home stretch, though, in under a month. I think I said this was day 27. And I have built these with quality in less time. One is Spirit of 52 with my 11-day Aries. For the people who think I-beams are hard to build, that's not correct. They're a lot easier to build. They're the easiest things out there to build. Well, it's starting to look pretty good. I don't have any place to hang this yet, so I'm going to have to make room in my shop. I'm going to have to get rid of at least one airplane. I don't know what to do. Maybe I can hang one from the ceiling up there. I need to get some more 1000 grit. Are you bored of watching me sand yet? Shut it off, because that's all this tape is sanding. Yeah, we're starting to come up on hard enough to sand on the Canopy. I'm going to tell a story about a penny collection. I started a penny collection, and I have it around here somewhere. And one of the hardest pennies to find is a 1909 SVDB. And I had the whole collection full. And I couldn't sleep until I got that penny. 1909 SVDB. I finally ended up getting one. It's not of great quality, but that slot was filled. And I could rest. Well, that's kind of like what I do with these airplanes. I can't rest until it's finished and it's done right. I guess that's part of my makeup. Yeah, it blends in real good there. That's good. Yeah, keep sanding. I'm still sanding. This paint is really not ready to sand. It's only a few days old. You can still feel it's kind of rubbery and the balls up on the sandpaper. But I want to get it close for the next coat. Come back with 600 wet. Oh, here we go. After I get all this sanded, we got to come back with 600 wet and sand the whole thing again. I guarantee you keep going over this thing, you'll find the spot. Like unbelievable. You're going, how did I miss that? There's just so many of them to try to make perfect. You can't help but miss it. Now, it looks to me like I might have a hair going here out by the lead outs from the poly span. And that's exactly what I got. So what I do is I take some CA. I got a piece of poly span that's coming up right at the tip around the lead out guide. That every time I sand it, it just gets worse. So in order to combat that, just take some thin set CA and go over that whole area there. And rub it in. Now I should be hardened all that up. I should be able to come back and sand that out. One away. That's exactly what it was. Put another coat of this on there. Do I think mine will be as nice as Tom's? Probably not. Do I think it'll be 10 ounces lighter? Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what it needed right there. We're coming up, we'll have 100 hours of sanding in this, I'm sure, by the time I'm done. Don't know how long this video's been running, but not long in comparison to how much sanding I have done. And I was sanding before I started this video. Been sanding over an hour, I'm sure, while that is drying. You notice I haven't sanded beyond open bays. Well, it has about 5 coats of clear on the open bays, thin coats of clear. And if you look at it, it's got a shine to it, but it's really not ready yet to sand. So I won't sand the clear or the center until I get a coat of white on it. That way I can see the problem spots. And I'll make that sanding strip about 1 inch wide and sand very carefully off the cap strips. If you sand the cap strips, you'll sand through and poof, then you'll have a problem. So, I'm going to cut the camera. I'm going to continue to sand, but I'm going to cut the camera so I can listen to the radio or television. But you can bet I'll be sanding just like I'm sanding now until that canopy's done. Then we're going to work on the canopy. And what are we going to do? We're going to sand. And that is really strange, you know. You think, well, I got that, you know, I got this area done. And you come back and you feel it, and you don't have it done. I don't know if that's I'm just a bad sander or what. I've sanded on this spot at least a dozen times. Cannot get it to come out the way I want it. Anyway, I'm going to cut the camera. I'll keep sanding, so I'll see you in a bit. Okay, all day been sanding, just like the last video, but now we're in the blending of the canopy. And because I did what I showed you by digging it into the fuselage and using very little putty. I've got 180 on a pencil. You can use a dowel. And I'm carefully going around the bottom of this canopy and blending it in. The putty is not quite dry, but it's workable now. It usually takes about 24 hours for it to become completely hard, but you can kind of move it now and shape it. Take your time. This will probably take me, I would say, probably a half an hour to blend this in. Oh, don't want to scratch the cockpit canopy. Probably should tape it off. But I want to cut this pencil off. When we clear the model, the canopy gets cleared. I'm just blending it from canopy to fuselage. And then we're going to come back and prime it and sand it and prime it and sand it until it disappears, that joint. I hope everyone understands what I'm doing here. Well, I got the one side done. And it took 5 minutes probably to blend that in. This is 180. The next go around it'll get 220, then 320, then 400 primed, and we'll start sanding with 600. Anybody that's seen my canopy installs will tell you that you can't feel them. It's like it was molded as part of the fuselage. But it's all about sanding. I can't stress it enough. It's all because I sanded. sure it's even. Couple more days of this, we'll be ready to paint. Had the wheel pants off today. I'm trying to figure out how I can lighten them up. I think about the only way that I'm going to be able to lighten them up is make molds and make them out of carbon. Boy, we got Hoosiers here in this town. They won't get out of the car and knock on the door. They just sit out in front of your house and honk. Nothing more aggravating. Okay, looks like we're going to have to get another piece of sandpaper on there. Ah, good. Got some more here. Anyway, it doesn't take long once you get in the rhythm of things. If you didn't leave a big globule on it. We had smoothed it down with the alcohol. For the simple fact I didn't want to spend hours sanding on the joint. Anyway, I think I'm probably going to cut the camera because it's just sanding. The only reason why I'm doing this is that Gordon wanted to see sanding, so there's plenty of it. If I could get paid by hours of footage on sanding, heck, I would have. Patrol Line Craftsman would have done great. There's at least 100 hours of sanding so far. Okay, that was 180. This is 320. I'm going to clean up some of this. Still have to prime it. But it's close. It's not going to take much. Shouldn't take as much as the Monado did. Must be getting good. Second here, I'll get the camera off the tripod and give you a look at it. You can still see a couple of shiny spots. That means those are low. So you want to keep sanding until the shiny spots are flat. I just thought of a way to even speed this up some more. We'll get this taped off and I'll spread on some glazing putty and sand it out before I put the primer on. Then it should just come right in. Because it's real close now. Now let me cut the camera, I'll give you a look at what it looks like. Okay, camera in hand. Our hard work is starting to pay off. It's all been sanded in. It's not quite finished, but that shouldn't take much to finish that off at all. Here's what our guy looks like. This area right here, real nice. I'll end up sanding that some more. This will all be sanded again. This is what I meant by translucent. You can see right through it, or transparent. And all the primer needs to be like that, including the nose up here, which I need to sand some more off of that. I don't want to carry around extra primer. But coming out pretty nice. Let me set this down for a second. As I told you, there's always something to do when you're working on these. I went ahead and soldered the tail wheel on it. Got that ready to go. It's super nice. It's going to be real nice. It's going to be a little heavier than I wanted, but what are you going to do? This was all junk wood. You know, we're looking at high 40s. Now, I wanted a mid-40s airplane, but nothing I can do. Super Tiger 46. It should be a valuable airplane, not a valid airplane. Going to have gold leaf, red, white, and blue with gold leaf letters on it. It's pretty close to Tom's numbers. It's exactly the numbers out of the magazine, but it does have a 1 inch shorter nose than Tom's original airplane shown on the cover. But I've always liked this airplane. So anyway, that's the sanding. Tomorrow I'm going to get some more DC 540. Tonight I'll be Z-epoxying the wheel pants. I might show that, how I'm going to finish those off. They'll be Z-epoxied and then wiped completely dry of all Z-epoxy, so there's no weight on it, and then sanded and primed and shot and painted and ready to go. So anyway, that's the end for today. We didn't get a whole lot done as far as video goes. A lot of dry time, a lot of sanding, and I could have filled the hard drive up here on this camera sanding, but that's just the way it is. So we'll see you tomorrow. Tight lines. Okay, it's all sanded out. It's not primed. What I did was I came up, I taped the canopy off about a 1/16 of an inch above the hand-painted line that I had painted from the inside. And we're going to paint this white before I paint the primer. And what that will do is give me a nice clean line inside. So I'm actually just painting the canopy, the bottom of the canopy now, because we're going to have to come back over it with primer to sand and finish off the area. But I want to get a couple of coats of white paint around that line, so that you can't see any primer from the inside. And just as always, no matter how good it looks, when you sand it, it looks like doo-doo with paint on it. So, I went back about 15 minutes to put another coat on it. Okay, we got 2 coats of white on it. Now comes, I don't have much primer left, but now comes the task of priming and smoothing this out so we have a nice transition. Now, even though it looked good before I put paint on it, it looks terrible, so gotta start sanding again. Put it on, sand it off. Might be a day yet before we're starting to paint. Whatever it is what it is. You just got to be willing to put in the time sanding. when I show these videos and you know you only see a few minutes of sanding, or you know the videos are coming very quickly, one right after the other, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of sanding. Believe me, there's over 100 hours of sanding to make this airplane, where it's ready to paint, looks like plastic. And in order to get a nice finished model, it is not in the spraying, it's in the sanding. Trust me. Sanding, sanding, sanding. So now, I'll let that dry. I'm going to cut the camera. I'll do a sand out, put the primer on, do another. It'll probably take 4 or 5 sand outs. So it's going to be, well, I don't know, 3-4 hours probably just getting that, maybe longer, just getting that sanded so it's blended in correctly. So instead of boring you, I'm back to sanding. Well, it's the morning. I do mean very early morning. It's day 28. It's 2 o'clock. And we got the canopy finished, sanded in. And I'm just detailing it now. But I did get it all molded in nicely. It took all day. And everybody wonders about the coat finishing. It's all in the sanding. So maybe tomorrow we'll get 1 coat of white paint on this airplane and sand it again. Real nice. Towel and wipe it off. Get a good look at it. Tomorrow in the morning I'll clean this all up before I retape it and shoot the white on it. But it come out pretty nice. So that was the canopy install on the Continental. It took all day to get her sanded and blended in, but turned out good. So we'll call it a night, and we'll see you in the morning of day 28. Tight line.